Welcome back to another Six Rings and Football Things. If you're watching the video, you can see this is the prospect version because you see not only myself, Andy Jumbo Hart, and Mike Cadlick from weei.com, but WEEI draft guru, know-it-all, loud hot taker Chris Scheim from the Greg Hill Show, also in the chat room today. And we are going to talk about something that Scheim used to be, but now that he's slimming down, the biggins on the end of the line, the tackle position, which before we jump into the prospects, and it is a very deep and interesting position among those at the combine and who will go in the first couple rounds on draft weekend, we should probably talk about a little bit of free agency that has brought, I think, some clarity to where the Patriots might target or have needs. Patriots re-signed Mike Onwenu to a 3-year deal in the evening on the first day of free agency. A good value deal, in my opinion. Shortly after guard Robert Hunt got $100 million, you had Mike Onwenu, who I would argue is a guard / tackle, or maybe just a tackle, got $57 million over 3 years. So I think it's a really good contract for Elliott Wolf. This came on the heels of a guy that they signed from the Steelers that Mike Cadlick's going to name right now, who is a right tackle as well. Go ahead, Mike.
Chukwara Okorafor.
I've nailed the last name. I've given up on the first name.
They call him Chucks. So Chucks Okorafor.
So Chucks, who started 59 games at right tackle for the Steelers. So it appears the Patriots have right tackle solidified, whether it's Onwenu, whether it's what's his name?
Okorafor.
You know what his brother's name is?
Okora 3?
Okora 5.
Yeah. Nice job.
But the left tackle,
I
know, thank you. The left tackle position is still a major question mark for this team because I don't believe either of those guys is a left tackle. Tyron Smith, as of recording, is still on the open market, and there were rumblings the Patriots had interest there. I've been told absolutely they have fans in the building of his. He's also very injury prone, so if you sign him, I would absolutely have a plan B ready to go because the Cowboys have had to use plan B rather often over the last 4 years. So as we dive into the prospects at the tackle position, where are you guys in terms of need after the Onwenu signing and the depth signings and everything that comes into it? I think we've all given up on like Andrew Stuber or anybody on the roster some developmental. That's a Fitzy guy. Like all these.
Oh yeah, I know he didn't play and he sat out a year.
Jason Hides is going to be really good next year.
Right. Can we give up on all those and say they need a left tackle? Is that where we are?
You're telling me Vidarian Lowe, they can't develop that guy? Come on.
It's below.
Exactly.
Below. It's a description and a name all in one. No, I look at this and barring a free agent signing or trade, and I should throw Jonah Williams out there, and I'm sure there's some other names that they might be able to trade for, or I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on the depth charts at left tackle for all 32 NFL teams. But I also think it'd be nice to get a young left tackle. And then the question becomes how high, where, how you doing that? Because we've talked about it. The wide receiver position is probably, and with the signing of Jacoby Brissett, the quarterback position with the signing of Jacoby Brissett feels more and more like they're going to do what I want them to do. And that's take a quarterback at number 3, whoever's on the board. Okay. So we've eliminated that as an option to get a tackle. Then you get to the 34th pick or trading up late in the first round. Either way, whether you're targeting a receiver or you're targeting a tackle. I feel like the two positions are very similar now. Like there's talent, there's depth, there's high end, day 2, there's all that. But, there's sort of an order of operations. Remember when you were in math class and it was like parentheses, brackets, brace.
PEMDAS, baby.
Yeah. Now we need to figure out what's next. If you take the quarterback, are you swinging for the tackle and you think you can get a wide receiver later? Or are you swinging for a wide receiver and you think you can get a tackle later? Where are we on that?
I think it all depends on who the Patriots are pursuing right now in free agency. Not to timestamp this, but they are actively talking to Calvin Ridley. Like that is a thing. It is legitimate. They are one of two teams. It's either the Patriots or the Jaguars at this point. Basically, Ridley is posturing for more money at the current moment.
I hate that, by the way. Can I just interject? Sorry. And not to timestamp this, as you said, but I feel like they're at a bar and they're trying to set a hook in Calvin Ridley, and Calvin Ridley's looking past them to another person at the bar like, I wish that person would come over and try to take me home with them, and but maybe I'll go home with this person. I think Cadlick, you sort of so if the Patriots get him, he didn't really want to be here. Like that's
what it sounds like. Or I mean, again, it could just be a money move too on both ends. Like he's just trying to drive up his price both ways, and he's gonna probably wait until Wednesday anyway because Jacksonville can't sign him till then because of the trade with Atlanta. So regardless, I feel like he's probably gonna wait it out a day to just drive that price up even more.
And so ultimately, like that signing kind of hinges on how the Patriots should approach this, right? So if the plan is in fact quarterback at 3, if you sign Calvin Ridley, you should go tackle in the second round at 34 and then grab a receiver in the third round. Whereas if you don't sign Calvin Ridley, you should probably draft a receiver at 34 or even like trade out of 34 or try and get more assets somehow to get 2 picks in the second round. Because I think that second round is like the sweet spot. If you can get both of them in the second round, you're like golden.
That I could not agree with more. And I don't know how realistic, unrealistic. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on every pick and like the trade value chart. And I know, Mike, in both of your Patriots mock drafts, I believe you've initiated trades in the second round to add an extra day 2 pick. If you can do that and you can nail both of these options, second round, early third round, somewhere in there, and walk away from early day 2, filling that out, I think you'll see a lot of cartwheels across Patriot Nation in New England because it just makes too much sense. So, okay, let's dive into the prospects here. And let's pretend at least a little bit that tackle could still be a consideration near the top of the draft. So whether that's at 3, which feels like a little bit of a reach, or that's more trade down and now
I still think there's I know you said that it feels like all signs are pointing at QB at 3. I still think that there is like a 50-50 chance they trade out of 3. And like you're getting a ton of because it feels like this draft is so rich at top end talent that they feel like, okay, I can trade out, I can get extra assets and then use some of those assets to get back into the first round or back into the second round and acquire multiple picks, like 3 or 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. And
Jacoby Brissett, how do you feel about mentoring JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, or Michael Penix. Like I don't know what it is. I get this feeling that is still a very, very strong possibility.
So who do we draft at quarterback in the first round in 2026 after this plan goes to hell?
Arch Manning.
Okay, so Joe Alt, I think, has solidified himself near or at the top of the board. Measures in, he's got the lineage. His dad was a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. I'll start just, 6'9", 320, certainly looks the part. Holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally believe he is a can't miss tackle. I know people try to paint him as a generational can't miss tackle. I think he's good. I think I have some questions about he gets overextended. He bends at the waist. Like, I think sometimes he looks like he's too tall, even though they lust after that length and that height. Sometimes you go, hey, is that guy a little too tall? Did he cross a line where it became not an asset? And I always use my example. It's funny. We just talked about him. Sort of in my head, the measuring stick for a long time has been when I watched Tyron Smith in college. I watched him. I said, holy fook, that guy can play tackle on any field at any level. Like he epitomizes any cliche dancing bear or whatever you want it to be. Joe Alt, I like, and he's a captain and he fills out all the things. I think he's a good, but not truly elite or generational talent. Like I think he'll be probably a good NFL left tackle, but he's not good enough for me to forego a quarterback to say, if I get Joe Alt and then I get JJ McCarthy later, I'll never regret it. I don't think he's good enough to say I'll never regret moving down.
Yeah, so you and I see Joe Alt differently. I see him as like a Joe Thomas level type tackle. Like this guy could come in and 8 straight All Pros. Like he is just. I understand your concerns about like over leveraging yourself, but I think his recovery ability is as good as it gets, right? Like he can sometimes over leverage himself and then immediately understands I need to get back. And for a guy who's 6'9", he moves remarkably well. I think he's easily the most balanced tackle, both run blocking and pass blocking. Like he has a really good pass set, really good first step, but he's also aggressive and not afraid to drive when it comes to those run blocking sets. I watch this guy and I'm like, yes, I want this guy on my team. Now, again, I think it's fair to say that I don't know if I would forego a quarterback for Joe Alt. Like I wouldn't take Joe Alt at number 3, but at the end of the day, I also believe very strongly that Joe Alt may just be the best player in this draft 10 years from now. Like he may be like, when you think Hall of Fame from the 2024 NFL draft class, Joe Alt may be the first name out of your mouth, like lock, stock, and barrel. No chance he's not in. That's kind of how I feel about him.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely a possibility.
You said it, Shime, as far as like the reason why he's my number one is that he does both exceptionally well. Like he's not really a better pass blocker than he is a better run blocker. He's just excellent at both. And you talk about the dancing bear / like bending at the waist or whatever. Like he kind of reminds me of like Nate Solder, where like high end Nate Solder, where like
I was gonna say if he's Nate Solder, then you're talking my side of the street.
Nate Solder was volatile. Like he reminds me of like the high end Nate Solder with like a higher floor, I guess, where he just is a moose of a person, but doesn't let guys by and is just there and he's sturdy. And I mean, as far as sorry, I'm reading Rappaport notes and making sure there's no Patriots. As far as foregoing a quarterback, you can't do it, but he is probably the second best prospect in the class behind Marvin Harrison Jr. It's just the value of the quarterback position, the wide receiver position outweigh it that much where I don't want to stick and pick at 3. But again, if they do this trade back thing and they are able to, grab and garner some assets, then I'm all for taking him in the back end of the top 10 if you do it. I do think he's that good. I think it's as close to can't miss in this class as Marvin Harrison is, and he's plug and play. You don't need to sit him. Obviously, you're going to put him in at your left tackle, and he's going to play the next 15 years for your franchise.
Okay, so, and it's funny because early on in this process, I don't even know that it was a consensus with Joe Alt. The Fasciano kid from Penn State was sort of like in these periphery of conversations. Seems like he's fallen out of those conversations since then, even though he, is an All-American, is 6'6", 312, certainly looks the part. And I didn't know a ton about him. Not going to pretend I watched a lot of Fasciano tape before watching him. And I see why he's fallen. Like, again, I'm not in love with him. I see a talented athlete, and I know a lot of people are giving him credit for Penn State's got a couple good edge rushers. Like he's really polished because he got to practice against those guys every day. Sort of the Alabama theory for years. Like if you draft an Alabama kid, they've practiced harder than they've played much of the fall kind of thing. I just see okay feet with him. I thought I was going to see a better athlete. And I think that goes through most of this class. I was a little disappointed overall because I actually think this class is a little deeper than I expected, but not quite as top heavy. I thought I was going to be talking more about Alt and Fasciano and some of these guys as like, top 10 picks, and I got to get 3 of them early. Fasciano, for me, is a solid player. And we'll get into some of the others that are going to go in the first round. My guy Guyton, who I'm not as in love with the more I watched him, that I kind of dream as a second-round pick. But Fasciano, captain, and I know the captain thing is something we're going to watch because it's been a Patriot thing. And now Alec Van Pelt brought that up as like, is the guy a captain? How many years has he been a captain? Why is he a captain? Why is he not a captain? And Fasciano has that. He also has what did I write here? I don't know. Yeah. So I gave him a meh.
Yeah. So I think you're kind of hitting this class on the head where it's like, overall, it's just solid. Like it's not going to blow your socks off. It's not going to wow you a lot of the time, but there are a lot of solid offensive line picks. I just think they're dwarfed in a lot of these guys are maybe outside of Joe Alt for me by the talent at the other positions, at the quarterback position, the receiver position, the corner position. Those 3 stand out. And so they kind of weigh down that first round a little bit. And there's going to be a bunch of tackles taken in the first round, but none of them are just wow you prospects. I think Fasciano is really solid. Like it reminds me a lot of, was it a year ago or 2 years ago, Charles Cross drafted by the Seahawks. Like he is remarkable in pass sets. He's probably the best pure pass blocking tackle in the draft this year. He's really, really light on his feet in that regard. Great first step. He struggles in run blocking, though. Like, he's not I want to go kill a guy mentality. He doesn't want to go blow somebody up. There's a lot of restraint there. And so that needs to be taught. And Charles Cross has had a lot of success for the Seattle Seahawks. And so I think in the right environment, Olu Fasciano is going to be a really good starting tackle in the NFL. Is he going to be all pro? Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Probably not. But like, he's going to be, 7 to 10 year starter. Like I feel confident in saying that, but you don't take a 7 to 10 year starter in the top 10. Like that's just not what you do.
Right. And I think like sort of piggybacking off that point is like we used to get mad at Bill when he would draft somebody and he'd be like, well, there were 3 guys that I liked, so I traded down. I kind of feel like that about the tackle class in general. Like, I'm not sure I feel dramatically differently about the 3rd best tackle compared to the 5th best tackle compared to the 7th.
It feels like there's going to be a run on tackles this year, just like there was on receivers last year, right? It's like everybody was just kind of like, man, I don't want to waste my top 12, top 13 pick on a receiver. But as soon as you get to 20, one team is just like, yep, I want one. And then once one goes, it's just like a domino effect.
Right.
So it'll be
It's like the quarter. It's like when you take the first quarterback in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
and
like
then it just
everyone
follows. Yeah.
Alt will go somewhere between like 5 and 10, and then the next one will go like maybe 10 to the Jets, but maybe not until later. And then once that one goes, that's when it'll start that domino effect.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about Fashanu is just the feet. And like, yeah, sometimes they're not perfect, but he's so light on his feet. He's 6'6", 312, and he just moves like a ballerina. Like, it's insane the way he can just get outside and it's something
Smooth.
that it is. It's very smooth and it looks flawless and effortless. And I think that's something that's hard to coach. That is just athleticism at its finest. And so if you can take that and mold everything else, then you're going to have a pretty good tackle. So that's the one thing that stood out for me.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple more here, and then we can start to bounce around. I found a guy interesting that I feel like there's been some buzz on in J.C. Latham from Alabama, who, as a right tackle, I don't love. I think as a guard, I love him. 6'6", 342. And I just think athletically, the right tackle thing, I think in the old days, he probably could have been a right tackle in the NFL. But in the modern, like, everybody's got 2 edge rushers, or they move their best edge rusher around, and you have to be able to deal with truly elite athletes. I would absolutely draft him as a guard. I would absolutely plug and play him as a guard. I think he's a Pro Bowl guard early in his career. If you try to decide that he is a tackle, I think you're probably going to be disappointed. I just think athletically there's going to be a little bit of a mismatch there, and his quickness, but like power, when he locks on to people, like when he gets you, he owns you. And I love that at the guard position. I'm not sure I see him playing tackle in the NFL, even the right side.
I mean, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was responding to a work text message, missed the name you started with. So
J.C. Latham from Alabama.
Oh, I hate J.C. Latham. Perfect. I don't like. Yeah, go ahead. I don't like Latham at all. I think he's super grabby. Like, this is a penalty waiting to happen. This is Alex Leatherwood all over again. Beast is like a giant Alabama tackle that's going to come in, be super grabby, get a ton of penalties on a bad team in the NFL, and then probably be out of a starting job in 3 years. I don't like Latham. A lot of people love him. I do not. I'm out on J.C. Latham.
And I think that influenced me, is it does seem like a lot of people love him, and
a lot of people do, and I don't see it
at all. To me, he's either a like late day 3 tackle or a guard. Like, I could take him higher, envision him playing guard for me and value him for that. But this like late love for him as like a top tackle prospect, I just don't see.
I agree that
I'm ready to move.
No, I like the Leatherwood comparison because I feel like someone's going to force him into the tackle position. Where
probably.
No, your connection kind of comes out sometimes and you sound like a demon.
Every once in a while, you're like the devil from South Park or something. Like, you have this. Like...
Do you have me back now?
Yeah. No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
It comes and goes.
So Leatherwood,
don't worry about it.
It's entertaining. It's tough. It's crazy. I like the comparison to Leatherwood because somebody's gonna force him into a tackle position, and he's not really gonna. He's not going to be great there. I think you have to. I agree with the both of you. You have to play him like a guard and stick him there. But his size is going to make you want to bump him out to the outside. And that's just probably going to screw him. So I think in the right situation, he's going to be good in the league, but I just don't see that actually happening with any team.
Along those lines, we should inject something here that I think for me is important, because I do see differences between still right and left tackle. I look for more athletic players. Are we all agree the Patriots are looking for a guy who can play left tackle, right? Like
100%.
That's the skill.
On when it was
100%.
your right tackle. Yep.
Okay. Because I think that's important. Like, you can't just take best tackle available if you're like, this guy's going to be a great right tackle. Well,
because like there's one guy in particular who I love, but he's a dedicated right tackle, and the Patriots should not draft him.
okay. So yeah. Also a little issue here that I know I'm going to have in the coming months is the difference between Fashanu, Fuaga,
And Fatanu.
And
yeah. What are we
Furtado.
doing here? Can we not have a bunch of FAU,
Yeah, it's tough.
guys? Like, I mean, Jesus. All right, somebody pick somebody that you like early.
Yeah,
on.
speaking of the FAUs, I want to talk about Talise Fuaga. Like, this is the guy. He is a mauler. This
Shine,
is
we're
the
on
guy
the
you
same
wanna
page,
watch.
man. Yep.
You want to watch?
Same.
You want to watch offensive line football? Go watch Talise Fuaga tape. This guy balls. He wants to hit people. He wants to kill you. He's an amazing run blocker. He still has some work to do pass blocking. Like, I think it's solid. He has a decent first step, not great, not as explosive as you'd like. He doesn't anchor quite as well as I'd like him to either. But when it comes to running and blowing up linebackers and safeties, this is your guy. You want to have just fun watching offense. It's like Joe Milton throwing a football. You want to watch a guy blow up some DBs and some linebackers. Go watch Talise Fuaga. He's a pure right tackle, though. I don't see him as a left tackle. He is not a Patriot. He should be off the Patriots board for the most part. Like, this is a guy who's going to go in the first round. You should not be thinking Talise Fuaga if you're the New England Patriots. But for a strong running team that needs a right tackle, this is your guy.
Yeah, I love Fuaga. I won't go into it as much as Shime did because he took him off my board, but I have Silent Assassin written down for him. Like, he doesn't do much, obviously doesn't do much talking. He just plays the game. And I actually have him as my number 2 tackle over Fashanu. I think he's going to be a stud, but I agree it's different with right and left tackle, and so it's hard to kind of put them next to each other. And I also agree that he should be off the Patriots board. But who I'll throw in is Patrick Paul, 6'7", 331. An animal out of Houston. He is a top 5 tackle for me. I know he is in that second tier behind the top 3. It's Alt Fuaga, Fashanu, and then that next sort of bunch that we talked about where that second run is going to go. But he's a beast in the pass game. He led only 6 hurries last year, 1 QB hit, 0 sacks. So he's just dominant in the passing game. And then, obviously everybody has some some work to do in the run game besides Talise Fuaga apparently. But he'll manage and he'll work and he'll be your anchor at left tackle. So I like Patrick Paul as a second round target for the Patriots.
I love everything about him except he has a tendency to get, again, a little overextended. And it's weird because he does a great job of latching on people. Like, once he gets hold of you, but the way he plays at times, I think that's going to be a lot of holds early in his career because the guy gets out. As soon as they see those arms kind of extended and hold, they're going to get him. But to me, it's sort of like the stuff I argue with the quarterback. Like, I have an offensive line coach for a reason. His job is to take this guy who has all the raw natural ability to be a left tackle and hone it and make it work at the NFL level. And we know in general, let's just step back for a minute. Is the left tackle going to have issues if it's Patrick Paul? Yes. You know who else is going to have issues? The entire effing team that's going to win 6 games this year. Like, it's a developmental rebuild bridge, whatever you want to call it. So this is the year to find that guy and to allow him to get his holds in and to allow him to figure it out against elite rushers so that in year 2, as the quarterback and the left tackle and all these guys start to hit their stride, you're okay. So I co-sign everything with you. I just think there's going to be a lot of holds early in his career.
He's a guy who, when you look at what the Patriots are going to do with the 3rd pick and then their 2nd round pick, like, if they're going to take a tackle at 3 or early in the 1st round, then you plug and play him at left tackle. But if you take Patrick Paul and you trade back a little bit in the 2nd round and take Patrick Paul, you should still be looking for like Tyron Smith. If you pair him with Tyron Smith and let Tyron Smith start the season at left tackle, and then Patrick Paul can develop, I think that's perfect if you want to use your assets there.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy I'd love to mention is Graham Barton out of Duke. I think this is like the perfect 2nd round pick. Offensive lineman for the New England Patriots. Like, if you sign Calvin Ridley later today or tomorrow, you draft a quarterback at 3, like, Graham Barton to me is the perfect guy to target at 34. I think he's very Mike Onwenu-esque in that he can play just about any position on the offensive line. He's extremely versatile. You need guard play, he can slide into guard. You need tackle, he can play tackle. Not quite as big as Onwenu, like weight-wise, about the same height. I think he's actually a little bit bigger. He's 6'5", 313, where Onwenu's more like 6'3", 350. So Onwenu's more of that traditional guard size, where Barton is more of that tackle size. He's more athletic. And I love the way he plays. I think he is solid all around. He is like Joe Alt in that he's very solid at run defense or run blocking and pass blocking. I don't necessarily think that he is like exceptional at either, but he is solid at both of them. And so for a team that wants to be balanced on offense, running the football and throwing the football like the New England Patriots, they don't necessarily, especially with a rookie quarterback, aren't going to be leaning one way or another. I think Barton is a great fit that could really help your team. Like if you do sign a guy like Tyron Smith here in free agency, you could theoretically start Barton next to Onwenu on the right side at guard. And when Tyron Smith leaves next year, kick Barton out to tackle. Like that's the kind of versatility he brings, almost like Peter Skoronski last year. And I think that's really valuable.
So 2 guys I want to touch on next, or guys that I think have very high ceilings. I think they're a little bit developmental, one a right tackle, one a left tackle. I'll start with a guy I think we talked about, Mike, at the Senior Bowl in Tyler Guyton. Now, I guess the perception is he's going to go in the middle of the first round. He could start the second run there in the late teens. If so, that's probably not going to be an option for the Patriots. I think Jim Nagy tweeted out the Patriots are one of like 6 teams at his pro day today. I mean, 6'8", 322, a little bit of a slow 40. I don't know how that'll hinder him, and maybe that pushes him down to a spot where you can get him at 5'19". Had a good Senior Bowl. He is athletic. He is like raw. I still think the hands and the punch need some work, but I'll go back to that's why I have an offensive line coach. That's why I have coaches in general. So Tyler Guyton is a guy I like as a developmental left tackle. And by developmental, I mean like I'm expecting you to be starting by the end of your rookie year or into the second season. And the Georgia kid, Amarius Mims, 6'8", 340.
Talk to me.
Just a mammoth human being who I believe I saw has 8 college starts. So that's a little bit like, okay, a little bit of a concern there. But in those 8 games, he put a lot on tape that you're like, oh yeah, like Jameis Winston. I'd like to see that at right tackle kind of mentality. Again, I just think big, powerful, long, and 6'8", 340. Those guys are called planet players for a reason. There's only so many of those guys that can play SEC level football, any NFL level football at that size. So again, I think he makes less sense for a team like the Patriots because I don't ever see him necessarily as being a polished left tackle. But if you want to develop a right tackle, I think you can do a lot worse than Mims.
See, I think Mims could eventually make the evolution to left tackle. Like I see it there. I think he's a little bit more raw. You're right. I mean, he only started 8 games, but it reminds me he reminds me exactly of DeJuan Jones from last year's draft, who didn't go until the 4th round. He fell because of weight issues, fell to the 4th round, got drafted by the Cleveland Browns, ended up getting thrown into the starting lineup a couple weeks into the season and really held his own. And like he had some success and he's growing and he's going to be a really good right tackle this year. I think a Mims could easily be that. Now, would I want to take that in the first round? Maybe not. But if Mims slides to 34 and the Patriots get him, that is an absolute win. This guy can play football. And again, you said he is a legit planet player in that he's the size of an effing planet. And if I have an offensive line coach that knows what he's doing, he can teach this guy how to play football the right way. And this kid could be a killer in a couple of years.
And isn't it a virtual certainty that somebody from this group that we like is on the board at 34? Like, I'm not going to predict how all the dominoes
there's
fall.
too many of them.
That's what I mean. And especially if what people talk about, like the quarterback tiers and people getting freaked out and could 6 quarterbacks go in the first round? Well, if 6 quarterbacks go in the first round, I guarantee you there's going to be a good tackle on the board at 34 and probably some good receivers, by the way. You're still going to have that potential debate. But, you run the numbers and you start to do like, oh, okay, so there's going to be 8 receivers and 6 quarterback. Well, that's half the first round gone right there. And you haven't touched another position. So I think that's interesting. A guy like Mims, could he go in the middle of the first round? Wouldn't stun me. Raw talent, just pure ability drafted. Is it possible that he slides to late and early in the second round? Wouldn't stun me. And that's where I think this class is interesting. Another guy I wanted to bring up that I liked previously, and I still like as a day 2 guy, is the Morgan kid out of Arizona. 6 foot 5, 312, I guess. Captain, torn ACL a couple years ago. Smooth. That's one of the things I love about linemen. Like, if you just look smooth, I don't know. I give you like big time. Like you don't freak
Mhm.
out. You're like, yep, nope. I'm gonna slide and I'm gonna get there. Nope, I'm fine. Oh, you're going back to the inside. Yep, I can go back to the inside with you. It's just like
It's
that
confidence.
confidence. It is. It's not. It's not that like, oh God, I gotta beat him to the spot. It's like, no, I know I'm gonna be there. I know my role. And
His
I think
hands are friggin' huge too. It's like throwing stones at people.
and I love that too. And so to me,
The
he is
problem
another
with
guy-
him, the problem with Morgan to me is he didn't pass the arms test at the combine, and someone's going to try and move him into guard. His arms are
Yeah,
too
he has
short.
very short arms.
It reminds me of Skoronski. I know Skoronski played tackle and he played well, but they did the back and forth with him. They did the back and forth with Isaiah Wynn with the Patriots.
So you
and
ever hear of
Giovanni
Isaiah
played
Wynn?
tackle.
That
Well,
worked out.
it's just
No, it didn't.
did it exactly.
not.
That's the thing. That's the
Yeah, but
one
it
thing
worked out
I
for
like.
a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker had a very similar situation, and
That's
he
true.
is one of the best linemen in football.
And Matt Light
I know,
has short arms. Like you
I
can find
agree.
examples in both directions. Like it absolutely didn't work or it absolutely did work.
And I think the big giant stone hands thing kind of counterbalances the arms a little bit. Like I get worried. Like Fashanu has tiny baby hands like me, but he
But he
passes
did pass
the
the
arm.
arms test. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think there's a balance there. It's if you fail both, it's like, okay, now we have issues. But if I can hit you with stones because my hands are friggin' massive, I'm not as worried about the giant arms.
That's fair.
Okay, Michael. Any
The other-
any names you'd like to throw around?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick on the. I kind of hate using the arm length stuff with the combine, but it also kind of works in some scenarios. Like it can make or miss your argument. And so Troy Fatanu did pass the arms test where people didn't think he was going to, but he's still on the smaller side at only 6'3", 317 compared to all these mammoths at the position. He kind of gives me. I'm going to use Isaiah Wynn vibes again because someone's going to try and move him inside or someone's going to move him outside. And I just, for the Patriots, seeing that kind of freaks me out. Like, I see N'Keal Harry and I see Quentin Johnson, and I put them all in the same bucket. And for the Patriots, I don't like it. And Fatanu and Isaiah Wynn just gives me the same vibe. I mean, he's good. He's versatile. I like that you can move someone inside and outside. But at the same time, moving guys around so much and having to patchwork things together just scares me. And so I like him as a player, but I want the Patriots specifically to grab an anchor at left tackle who you just put there. He's not a guard. He's your freaking left tackle. And so that's kind of what pushes me back on Fatanu a little bit.
So I would love a truly elite prospect at left tackle. I agree with you on that. That said, if I were drafting, I would absolutely draft Troy Fatanu and say, I love the way this guy plays the sport of football on the offensive line. Offensive line coach, figure out exactly where he's going to reach his NFL ceiling because I love everything about him. I love his power, his hands. Like he's just a fighter, a brawler.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a running back or a quarterback, this is the kind of dude, this Logan Mankins type that I want in front of me because I know he would die for
Logan
me.
Mankins a guard.
He will. I don't care. I'm not saying I know exactly where he's going to play. I'm saying
I know.
Remember
The
the old
style.
story about Jimmy Johnson when he was
100%.
trying to build the Dolphins and he picked freaking Larry Izzo and he's like, I got one member of the roster. I need 52 more. Well, for my offensive line, I got Troy Fatanu. I need 4 more. I don't know where he's playing, but dude is going to kick ass, take names, and make good things happen for my offense. I could not be a bigger fan of his game.
I think there's 2 tackles that stand out to me that could be like if the Patriots decide to go quarterback receiver, like imagine they just stay put at all 3 positions. They go quarterback receiver and you're looking at a 3rd round tackle. I think there's 2 guys that stand out that could be there. The first one to me is Kingsley Suamatia out of BYU, 6'5", 326. I think he's pretty good. Like he's got, again, another guy with stone hands. He's really good in pass set. He has a really good anchor. He knows how to get down. He moves decently well. Sometimes he's a little too upright. Doesn't get it as aggressive as I'd like. But I like the idea of getting a guy like that in the 3rd round. And then the other guy for me, who did not test at the combine because he's recovering from injury, but has ridiculous arm length, and I just like that in an offensive tackle sometimes, especially a developmental one. That's Kieran Amagaji out of Yale. Like this kid is just the arms. It's like carrying around hoses. I don't know it, and it's just somebody's gonna beat him. Doesn't matter. There's go gadget arm. I'm gonna stuff you 5 feet from my body. It doesn't matter. He has like the wingspan of I think it's like Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he's 6'5", whereas Giannis is like 6'10". Like it's kind of nuts. And he is a ridiculously good pass blocker. He reminded me a lot of Anton Harrison from last year, who I really liked and ended up going in the first round, I think, to the Jaguars. So Kieran Amagaji is a guy who is going to fall because of that injury. Didn't test at the combine. I'm curious to see if he tests at a pro day and see how he looks. But that's a guy in like the beginning of the third round that I would absolutely love to target.
Okay, so I'm not going to say either name because I struggle with names, and man's going to know his limitations. I actually don't love either guy. As developmental guys, they're okay. The Yale kid, I put on like the Holy Cross game, and it was a good thing he had long arms. Otherwise, he would have gotten his quarterback killed more often than not. Just that level of competition leap, and then that level of athleticism leap. I don't think he'll be ready to play as a rookie. I honestly don't. Like, he's a true developmental prospect, whatever that is, day 3. I don't know. The BYU kid, again, I just look. He was a guy that it felt like if he didn't win the play, he wasn't going to win the play. Like, it was like the first 2 seconds, like
No
that
recovery
that mirrored that guy we were talking about, that simple, like, cool, calm, collected. Oh, you got me off the snap, but guess what? Doesn't mean you're getting to my quarterback. This was the opposite. It was like, if you got him off the snap, you won. And if you didn't get him off the snap, but you got him a step later, you still won. Like, I don't even know what that would be, like competitive consistency through a play or some. I'm sure there's some term scouts would use.
Gives up quick, basically. He gives up too quick.
Yeah, it's almost like, oh yeah, no, that's all I had. The 1 second, I can't go 3 seconds. But I don't hate either player. I just have concerns about the Yale kid, because anytime I look at the non-D1 player, because you get used to watching not only the D1 guys, but like the SEC guys, like
the Power 5 guys.
You played 8 games at Georgia and you weigh 360 pounds. I think you got a shot.
I'll take the risk.
Right. And then the Yale kid, I'm like, you need to dominate the level you're playing for me to think you're then going to come in and start for me in the national. And I know guys do it. You got Rich Keefe's Hobart guy, the
Ali Marpet.
Like, there's plenty of those guys. Like, don't get me wrong. Cole Strange,
the Quinn Miners of the world, the Dalton Risners, Cody Mock last year.
Absolutely. I don't rule it out. When I saw him, I did not see a guy that I saw like NFL ready. I saw like, okay, I'm gonna put him in the system, and Fitzy can tell me in 2 years that he'll be ready to help us out.
Sure, but if I'm getting a pick in the third round, that could end up in 3 years being a solid starting tackle. Like, that's worth it to me.
Cadlick, you got any others you like? Or
no, I mean I like Kingsley Suamatia. I like him. Kieran, I'm fine with. I do like Suamatia, but he's a guy who. Some of these guys at 34, or if you're going to trade up for a guy, are worth the reach and worth the extra capital. Kingsley, I think, is. Kieran, I don't think so. And I'm using their first names because their last names are too hard. So that's kind of my take. That's kind of my take on those two guys.
I'm the official name pronunciation guy on this program.
You should. You should be proud, and I'll let you have that role because I don't want that role. I have no interest in that role. A guy, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but I'll tie it in now. So we started with Joe Alt. And his teammate at Notre Dame, Blake Fisher, who was the right tackle. You read some stuff. Some people think, oh, maybe if Joe Alt wasn't there, he would have been their left tackle, could be a left tackle. And a quote from a scout, I think this was on the NFL.com page, where more talented than Joe Alt. And I was like, I know you're praising Blake Fisher, but is that also a shot at Joe Alt there, where you're saying like his right tackle, who's going to go much later in the draft, is actually more physically talented than him? He's an interesting guy. Like, he's that, sloppy seconds. You look at a team, you're like, oh, their other tackle's pretty good. 6'6", 310. He's a little slow off the ball, and I'm not sure if that's something you can teach. I'll be honest. I put a lot on my offensive line coaches, but that's one thing that concerns me. Like, how quickly you get off the ball, because I don't know if you use like a freaking shock collar or how you would like teach a guy to be quicker off the ball on the cadence. That's an interesting weakness that I don't love.
That tells me the guy can't understand the snap count well enough. And if he moves too fast, he's going to false start all the time, where he almost has to wait. Yeah, exactly. Yep. He has to wait until the ball gets snapped, or else, because he has
that's weird. Like,
I know, I agree, but that's what that tells me. It's not good. I agree.
But so he's a guy that in that next tier of tackles I kind of like. And, that idea that you could draft him as maybe a left tackle, even though he didn't really play left tackle in college. And it's, the Matt Castle syndrome. Well, they had a really good player ahead of me, so I just played right tackle, and Joe Alt was our left. he's a guy that I'm actually a little bit intrigued by.
I have one more name for you too. A much later round pick. This is probably a day 3 pick. And he actually may even get kicked into guard in the NFL just because, again, arm length issues. Dominic Pooney out of Kansas. Like, he is a tackle, but probably will end up being an NFL type guard. He's decent. He's nothing amazing by any means. He's a really good run blocker, I thought. I thought the pass block sets were a little uncoordinated is the word I would use. He's not as balanced as I would like. He doesn't anchor quite as well as I would like. He does fire out of his stance really well. That first step is really good. But again, this is a guy that I would have concerns size wise is necessarily a left tackle at only 6'5", 313, 33-inch arms. Like, I don't know if he passes the tackle test, but I think he could be a halfway successful guard if somebody kicks him inside.
Okay, so as we come down
One
the
more.
home stretch, oh, you get another one.
One more. Just one more. Now that we talked about the left and right tackle thing, Roger Rosengarten from Washington played right tackle opposite Fatanu, but was technically Penix's blind side. Andy, we talked about him on the mock draft. So he was what the heck was the Ryan Grubb, the offense coordinator at Washington, said that they could have used both guys at both positions. So Rosengarten, another third round, fourth round pick, maybe. If you want to go get a guy there that could potentially be a left or right tackle for you. He kind of seems to have the versatility there. So that's my last one.
Okay, so let's put a bow on this Six Rings and Football Things prospect podcast. Focus on the tackle position by asking a couple simple questions and answering them. When will the Patriots take a tackle in the draft? And who will that guy be? Who is your preference for Patriots tackle and at what spot? Chris Scheim.
Yeah, I think the Patriots will take a tackle at 34, and it'll be Graham Barton out of Duke. I just think they're going to really, really like his versatility. They're going to see literally like a carbon copy of Mike Onwenu with a higher tackle upside. And so I think Graham Barton, you can slide him right into the starting lineup, whether you need a tackle or a guard. He's going to start for you year 1. He's going to be really good. And then in that year 2, if you need a tackle because you signed Tyron Smith to a 1-year deal, he kicks out the tackle and you're golden. So to me, it's Graham Barton at 34.
Do you think he could start at left tackle from day 1?
Yeah, I think he could. I think he has the size to. I think he has the ability. I think he can play. I think the way like you feel about Fatanu, I feel about Graham Barton. And I love the way he plays, and I think he can grind and win at left tackle in the NFL.
Okay, Mike Cadlick, when and where? Who do they get?
I'll go pick 68. I'm going to say they whiff on Ridley. They got to go with wide receiver at 34. And at pick 68, if he's there, cross your fingers, we'll go with Kingsley Suamataia. You take him out of BYU, left tackle. Sign a guy. He's your developmental guy. You don't have to start him week 1, but eventually towards the end of the season or hopefully next year, he's your anchor at left tackle. So that's what I'm going with.
So I'm going to pull what I call a Scott Zolak because he famously used to on the All Access draft preview shows when they asked for like a name when the Patriots were picking at like 29, 32, would give a name that was probably going to go in the top 12 picks and just like, yeah, that'd be great, Scott. I agree with you. That'd be great if they got that guy at 32. I'm going to go Tyler Guyton because I just think he is a pure developmental left tackle. I think they need a pure developmental left tackle. Again, he might be gone.
Yeah, but like Guyton could make it into the 20s, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Patriots trade back up into the 20s.
Right.
Like that's been my kind of thing too with like even the T. Higgins discussion is we know what the value of this draft class is right now. We don't know what next year's is going to look like. So I am always willing to use capital from next year, like a first round pick from next year, to get either established talent in a guy like T. Higgins or trade up into the first round to get a guy like Tyler Guyton if I really feel conviction on him. So I still think that is definitely in play for the Patriots.
And I'm just going to throw out there that I still love Fatanu, and if he's available somewhere, and he's as excited as I could get about an offensive lineman. Like I obviously want a wide receiver,
awesome.
Mitchell, whatever. He's a fun guy. So hopefully that was a fun podcast as we broke down in a depth that you won't get too many places, the tackle position as it pertains to the New England Patriots and the 2024 NFL draft. We know they still need one, at least at the time that this is posted. Certainly there could be some free agent maneuverings that could alter the value of their picks and the need for a tackle. But for Mike Cadlick, Chris Scheim, myself, Andy Hart, this has been another Six Rings and Football Things brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, and we'll be back more next week. We will move on to the Chris Scheim pick a position. What's next?
Defensive end.
Defensive end, we're going to go to the edge of the defense, the sexiest at times of all the prospect positions. So we'll be back next week talking about pass rushers, because once you get a pass thrower and then you get a pass protector, why not talk about a pass rusher? So that's what we'll do. Thanks to Chris Scheim. Hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next week. 6 Rings out.